Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist, empowering, educating, igniting, and inspiring people like you to take action with jet propulsion. We assist people to find and embrace their life purpose, live their highest vision, become the next best version of themselves. That's doing so by forging a strong foundation so you can soar to success. And bringing more information to you is really what we do here at Healthy Lifestyle. And today we're going to bring you an absolute superstar and something that you, I believe, are going to find very interesting. He is the CEO of Ethos Benefits. His name is Donovan Ryckis. He is award-winning founder and CEO of Ethos Benefits, and it's a firm dedicated to advancing fiduciary-driven health insurance strategies for employers nationwide. Yeah, it's a new concept, right? He used to be a security advisor and fiduciary. He decided to shift from his registered investment advisory after seeing the fraud, waste, and abuse in his first accidental exposure to employer-sponsored healthcare plans. And being asked to help a client with his healthcare package, he created a 40% savings with limited knowledge and no cost shifting to employees in reduction of benefits or increases in premium. So Donovan and his wife and business partner Chelsea take a common sense approach and a fiduciary financial process to effectively monitor, measure, and manage the cost to and in employer healthcare plans while increasing savings for both the employers and their employees, which is a really important thing these days because there's a lot of healthcare scams out there. So you have to be careful what you're dealing with. And there's also a lot of layers that are not necessary. And so welcome to the show, Donovan. I'm so excited to talk about this on Healthy Lifestyle with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so happy that you are here. And it's so funny. I was speaking to my bestie just 2 days ago, literally, and she has this healthcare plan that basically covers nothing. So she spends about $400 a month and finds out that it covers nothing. And she has to have a procedure and it doesn't cover that procedure. So there's always no, 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 no's. There's not a lot of yes, yes, yes. And so people like her need people like you who are going to offer these packages to employers so that employees don't suffer the same situation. So let's talk about this. In the opening, I said that you went through a process and you accidentally fell onto this process. So tell us a little story about how you got where you are right now.
Yeah, certainly. So I actually started just in financial services, somewhat accidentally as well. My venture before was actually owning and operating a Gold's Gym, which I did and I loved. Also around the time Planet Fitness was opening up and they just destroyed the gym industry. So I got into financial services and I wasn't really sure what part of the industry I want to be in. That's a broad term that can really cover anything. You can work with any type of product or insurance or any type of person or company you want to. So I kind of navigated that for a while and realized for those reasons it'd be a great industry. But kind of stumbled through it, kind of figuring out where I'd best fit in and where I'd really find some passion in the work. And what I started with, what I kind of worked my way up to was getting my securities license. So I became a financial advisor. And this was back around 2013, 14, when there was grumblings of this new potential legislation called the fiduciary rule. And the basic idea of this legislation was that all financial advisors would have to license as a fiduciary, which means, the basic three principles is acting in your client's best interest at all times, not having any conflicts of interest, and being 100% transparent with your compensation, where, when, how much you get paid.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that we have to have legislation before people do that?
Yes, exactly. So that was I'm kind of just working on studying for my license and figuring out there's several securities licenses. And I'm hearing all this. I'm like, wait a minute, why is that? Why is everybody freaking out? Everybody in the industry was just terrified of this concept. And to me, I'm like, God, that should be the bare minimum. Like, why do we even have to say that? Why do we have to license it? Why do we have to make it the
It
law?
shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, like come on, people, right? So obviously I took the path of just go ahead and licensing as a fiduciary from the get-go, which at that time I'd say like 95% of advisors were Series 6, Series 7, not fiduciary advisors, right?
Right. Right.
So I was like, you know what? That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I'm going to license as a fiduciary. I knew that law probably would not pass. It did not pass. And if it did pass, it would be watered down over and over and over again to where it finally eventually meant nothing. So I was like, I'm going to take the higher road. I'm going to take the highest standard of care for my clients,
Yeah.
which is being a fiduciary. And I did that, and I decided the kind of ideal client persona I wanted to serve was business owners because they had more complex needs, maybe defined benefit and contribution plans, 401ks and pensions, business and trust and tax structures that could be used. It just got me a little bit more excited about the opportunities that I could do.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and things went incredibly well. I loved it. It was certainly the ideal client for me, until I kind of realized a couple years in that while I was working for my ideal client, I wasn't solving their greatest problem. And I found that out when one of my clients called me just absolutely panicking about his healthcare renewal. He said, "Hey, my broker said I'm getting a 37% increase on my
Mm.
health insurance. He said, this is it. There is nothing else out there for me. I don't know what to do." You could kind of hear it in his voice, the panic, the concern, what this is going to mean, passing that down to his over 100 employees at the time, right? So he asked me to take a look at it. And I said, sure, send me everything you have. And I said it that way because I had no idea what I needed or what I should have.
Sure.
I didn't know how to begin to diagnose the problem or what paperwork I'd get or what kind of details or facts or data or anything.
Right.
Um, so he did. He sent me everything, and a lot of things were surprising. The first surprising thing to me was that his 37% increase was explained on one page in about two paragraphs with no supporting facts, data, solutions, or ideas behind it. It was just kind of like, this is it. Here you go. Go ahead and pay it.
Good luck.
So that made no sense to me coming from a security standpoint, especially a fiduciary security standpoint, where you have 100% transparency in everything you do and you're constantly um, having disclosures and data and facts and I mean, just everything you could ask for to research a security or a product and understand it. So, I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm thinking, God, like, with this many employees, there had to be thousands of claims throughout the year, and they didn't provide any of that, right? There had to be thousands of people go between pharmacy fills and primaries and specialists and urgent care and ER and all these employees and their dependents, thousands of claims. And that's all covered in two paragraphs. And his broker, publicly traded agency, is saying, this is it. Here you go, you know?
No.
So
So
it,
no statistics behind it, no justification for the need of the increase, nothing.
no, I mean, the general conversation is still how it goes today is, well, your claims were high and therefore pay more. No solutions to actually mitigate that, right?
Reduce the claim, the high claims. What was causing the high claims? Was
Yeah.
there a reason? No need to, they didn't want to have that discussion at all.
Yeah. No, there is zero disclosure.
Mm.
So that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I went to work. I made as many industry contacts as I could on the healthcare side that understood this could lead me through the problem. And the end result was that 40% differential you opened us up with. So his broker was dropping a 37 increase. We actually came a couple points under, and we didn't pass on any costs to employees. We didn't put them in a smaller and smaller network. We didn't put them in scenarios where claims would now be denied. So I was able to do that just by understanding the risk, so the claims behind it, and having a process to where my first interest wasn't myself, my commission, my bonus, my time. I looked at this like, hey, my client has a problem. How can we best resolve that without understanding the incentives in it for me first? And
Right.
that's really how a fiduciary process starts.
Yeah. Well, that's also very heart-centered.
Yeah.
And it's serving without profit comes, money follows,
Yeah.
But if you're doing the right thing with the right intention, that's all good. That's all good.
Mhm.
So I love to hear that that's where you started. But tell us more about the ethos benefits. Let's have an understanding. Now you told
Sure.
us a story how you got there, and then you probably got a little addicted at the game. See, to me, I don't play video games.
Mhm.
I help my clients.
Yeah.
That to me is exciting, and that's how I enjoy myself. So tell us more about the ethos benefits.
So essentially, after seeing that, what I realized is, in securities, they have a actual license to be a fiduciary to, provide that type of advice. When we're talking about healthcare plans for employees, right? And I mean, 183 million Americans are covered under healthcare plans under their employers. So that's how big this problem is. Nearly half the country, right? Or over half the country, rather. Um, and there's no license or legal requirement for those people that are advising those companies and the packages that half the country's going into to be a fiduciary and to do it in their best interest. So that's what Ethos Benefits sought out to do from the beginning is just like, hey, I'm already used to this standard of care in my business day to day. And now I feel I can apply it really for the greater good rather than just the owner's pocketbook, which is good and fun. But I can apply this to everyday working people, and I can see that impact across all the people they employ rather than just the balance in a couple of accounts, a couple of numbers and zeros in an account, right?
Yeah.
So we can see that reduction and understand what it means for a family of four, a family of five, right? Um, so yeah, that's the main concept of Ethos Benefits, taking a standard that does not exist legally or through licenses and applying the highest standard of care, which is that fiduciary standard of care, into healthcare decisions.
Yeah, and to what we were saying before, it shouldn't have to be legislation. It shouldn't have to be a law. It should be just standard. It should be, doing the best thing, the right thing for your clients, for your customers, for your friends, for your families,
Mhm.
for your employees. It's just it is totally befuddling to me that we actually have to make it a rule before we actually institute it ourselves. Some, I shouldn't paint everybody with that picture,
Yep.
but a lot of people are painted with that picture. Now, do you have any healthcare background? I mean, how did you get from you know, being in one place and then going into
Mhm.
financial and then doing this? You sound a lot like me. I'm like, interesting. Let me find out more. So,
Yeah.
do you have healthcare background?
No, not at all. And that's kind of how broad financial services can be. What I do have a background in is finance and data and math and understanding the relation of these things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just flipping it. Instead of looking for ways to increase account balances, we're looking for ways to decrease claim costs to have a surplus of funds in that healthcare account to mitigate future increases.
Do you represent certain companies or
Companies are like insurance carriers, do you mean?
insurance carriers?
I am complete, like, I do not care what insurance carrier we use. That is not, I don't get paid by them directly. I work for the clients. So yes, I've worked with hundreds of different insurance carriers when they have the best solution for my clients, but that is not part of like our framework, our decision making where we start it all, right? We're
So do
starting.
you do you do the comparison for your
Mhm.
client? So you go out there and
Yeah.
talk to these insurance companies and say, these are the things I'm looking for my client.
Yes, the process works a little bit different, but yeah, we are essentially going to market for all the solutions. With healthcare, it's a lot more complicated, so the insurance aspect is certainly a piece of it. But the other piece that's a little bit different with everything else is the supply chain, right? Like, what prices are you agreeing to pay hospitals and pharmacies, and how's your pharmacy benefit manager getting paid? How are those contracts structured? What is
Yeah.
your procurement process through that? So it's a little bit different than it's a lot different than the insurance shopping thing, right?
Are
Because
you cutting out a lot of those in between people that we're hearing a lot about?
yeah, certainly. So the thing people will be hearing about the most the past 2 years or so is pharmacy benefit managers, and this is part of what Mark Cuban's been using his megaphone to talk about with his new company, Cost Plus Drugs. And pharmacy benefit managers are kind of a middleman, right? They set the price of the drug for the employees that gets filled at the pharmacy. And they get a spread in the middle of what the employer pays versus what that drug actually costs. And those spreads are wildly variable and sometimes totally inappropriate and shocking. So yeah, that's one of the pieces we manage and measure heavily because all those extra dollars go to the PBM instead of the employer or the employee, and it's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, here's another one of those. I cannot even understand that there are people out there who are dying because they can't afford their meds.
Hmm. Yep.
No conscience about it whatsoever.
Yep.
None whatsoever. There should be like pricing for this, and that's what the pricing is. And, I understand there's competitiveness, but there should
Mhm.
be some competition. And they make it so complex sometimes, and they don't share information that you can't even do comparisons. They
Yeah.
prevent you from doing comparisons. It's actually, I recently got a new mortgage, and I could not compare to which one I should use because it all had variables depending on after they check your credit and you go through everything. And you can
Mhm.
only do one at a time, otherwise you tank your credit rating. So they preclude you with purpose to be able to compare similarly to the insurance and health insurance
Yeah.
specifically. It's amazing. Why Ethos? How'd you pick your name?
So the ethos as a word means the guiding principle, spirit, or characteristic of a person or an organization. So we have a strong ethos around what we do, why we do it, who we serve.
Hmm.
And our clients tend to also have a very strong ethos of how and when and why they make decisions, for their people in the best interest. They'll go all out and do those things. So um, that's the kind of why behind ethos.
Yeah, I like that. I'm always intrigued in branding. I have 35 plus years in marketing, and so
Mhm.
when I hear a name like that, it was very intriguing. I thought that might be the case, but I wasn't so sure. So you decided to make this switch on
Mhm.
your focus. How does it feel to go from financial advising, and it's not like you have to leave it in the back, but and go into this healthcare and provide that kind of service? What are the feelings like when you make those changes? Because I love transitions. I love pivots.
Yeah, I mean, it was a questionable one for a while. I mean, I was very well paid. So I was very well paid. It was a great being a financial advisor was a great position. I was doing it on a fiduciary business basis. So like I felt very good about that as well, right? Like I was giving my clients better results and it was one of those things where like the more compliant and transparent I was with them, the better I did. And that's very much the same with Ethos, which is part of the reason I love this business and the way we do it. But yeah, to go from something like that to healthcare, which everybody hates, that's always negative, that employees have a hard time navigating. Um, it wasn't a ton of fun. Like you certainly question it for the first 2 years until things really started getting going. But the purpose, like seeing the wins one by one with employers as we start taking on new engagements, kind of kept us going. And now today, I can't imagine doing it any other way or doing anything else.
I find it interesting. I'm going to ask you a real tough question
Okay.
for your clients. In some companies, I worked with Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. Um, in some of those companies, it's an annual change of supplier, of provider, I should say.
Mhm.
Does that happen with your clients?
No, our retention is second to none in the industry, and there are plenty of industry benchmarks for me to actually measure this and compare it to. We also work with agencies across the country through a lot of different organizations that, and conferences that we've been going to for years since we started. Benefits is an annual decision in that insurer sets the rates only for the next 12 months. And then we do have to go through this process again, make some adjustments, figure out what was the problem, put in some solutions. Um, but typically, no. I mean, the interesting thing about what we do is, I mean, we work so closely with the company. We're not only working with the executives and the healthcare finance piece of everything, and then also the technology piece where we're integrating into payroll and we're giving them benefits administration, or we're doing a lot of their compliance pieces like ACA reporting, 5500s, all kinds of things. We're also helping the employees through healthcare delivery. So once we get in there and we're kind of doing all the pieces, no, that typically doesn't happen. I mean, and increases happen. Sometimes companies do deserve them, and sometimes they're short term. Sometimes we can work around them, but that doesn't mean or necessitate that uh, our clients have to look around or make changes because we're open to any solution that serves them, and we'll bring that to the table to them, even if we know it's maybe not the right year and they'll might consider it the following or whatever. We want them to understand, be aware of the progression, options, those kinds of things.
Yeah, knowing your options, it opens you up to be able to make informed decisions. You know, as a contract negotiator in the past, we used to do VPAs, volume purchase agreements, and I
Mhm.
think what should happen is there should be a savings benefit agreement, which means if your employees aren't using or aren't needing the benefits, that there should be a savings the following year that
Yep.
everyone can enjoy and things like that. So I don't know, I just throw that out there. But in the meantime, you're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We're going to come back. I want to really dive in deeper for you to help us understand and explain the healthcare problem for companies. So people listening will have a better understanding, and those companies will really identify with what you have to say. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne. If you'd like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, not-for-profit, or if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. And you know I answer every single one of you personally. Email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com so we can bring programs and information to you that you're looking for. And my team and I are really reaching out to find all kinds of different information that will help benefit you and help make your decisions easier on a day-to-day basis. So today we're speaking with Ethos Benefits. I have Donovan Ryckis here. He is explaining just wonderful things. Donovan, thank you and welcome back to the show. So, you know, the employee benefits thing in my mind is a big lie, right? And we want to clear up this big lie. So help me understand, and please help explain the healthcare problem for companies so that our listeners better understand what the problem really is.
Gosh, that's such a big question. Yeah,
Take a look at that.
I'll try to distill it down. So I think we covered earlier how big the problem is. 183 million Americans covered through their employers, which is the lion's share of how people are covered under health insurance. Health insurance for a company is a top three P&L expense for almost every business across the country. On average, this increases from 7 to 9%, and it's not unusual to have outlier years of 30, 40% increases. We see that very, very often. And it's gotten to the point where this year in 2025, the average price of health insurance for a family of four is $35,119,
Oh,
which just breaks my brain every time I hear it, even though I've been seeing this stuff for 10 years, to think that that's the starting point for a family of four, right? And employers do their best to cover it. Typically, they have an employer contribution on the employee portion, but most employers can't afford, with the way healthcare inflation has been rising since 2010, to also offer an employer contribution on dependents and spouses.
yeah.
That's not always in the cards. So, this is something that's eating away at profit for companies. It's lowering wages and the possibility of increases. The other unfortunate thing, if you think of it, with an average increase of over 7% a year, that's not far off from what employees could hope to grow in their 401k. So we are literally seeing healthcare steal the future of Americans through the rising costs. I mean, there's a lot of employees out there who don't even contribute to their 401k because of healthcare costs. But even if you're doing both, you might just be staying flat, right?
Yeah.
So huge, huge problem all the way around.
Yeah.
And it started and it persists for a couple reasons. So
And they are.
So I'd say one of the biggest things is the fiduciary concept that we talked about.
Yeah.
That's a huge part because it is complicated, and the people who specialize in it, unfortunately, if you think of what they're called, so in our industry, they call them brokers, healthcare brokers, employee benefit brokers. And what a broker does is they sell the risk transfer, right? The company is transferring that risk of their employees' healthcare over to the insurance company. And the problem with that is, as a broker, you get paid for more risk transfer. So the more expensive the risk transfer is, the more the broker gets paid. Um, and if we think about this logically, like any type of risk or healthcare risk in this case, like there's really only four things you could do. Transfer is the most expensive of the four options. The other two you might want to do first is risk avoidance and then risk reduction. And then the third thing would be retaining some risk and then risk transfer, right? So when we think of that as like a matrix, imagine it. Um, the only mode or place there's compensation for brokers is in the risk transfer, which is the most expensive thing you can do. So looking for strategies first before we do that risk transfer to see what risk, what parts of it we can avoid, right? And take out of the plan and find better solutions for employees, for the companies before we get in. And then what other parts can we reduce that risk before we design it? And then transfer the appropriate amount, right? It doesn't make sense because it would not only lower broker compensation on that risk transfer, also there would be no compensation for the risk avoidance, for the risk reduction in the way the industry generally operates today. So
Yeah.
what the employer wants versus what they get is just wildly different. And they're mostly unaware of that concept and the idea that there's even things you could do to avoid or reduce risk. Like that's just not a conversation that even happens.
Yeah. Yeah. See, to me, I think it's very short-sighted because I think if we did front end care, we would reduce the amount of risk that we would have. And then we wouldn't have as large of healthcare requirements if we
Mhm.
took care of ourselves from the front end. And what I mean by that is if we eat healthier, if we put healthier things in our body, meaning medicine and stuff like that, and healthier things on our body, because some of the stuff that we actually make up and things like that have 1,4-dioxide in it. It's definitely a carcinogenic. So all these things on the front end, if we would reduce that, get compensated maybe, or get rewarded for exercising, or things like that, and do more of a reward basis, I really feel like we're doing it backwards. You know, we look at insurance, health insurance, and we're looking at worst case scenario, and we're paying for worst case scenario, even if we'll do all the right things on the front end. So I just feel like it's backwards, and it also should be two-pronged.
Mhm.
Upfront care will reduce back end necessity. Back end necessity is so much more expensive than front end proper care.
Yeah, there's an aspect to it of that, and there are some plan designs where we mitigate that and eliminate like uh
Doesn't that reduce risk?
yeah, it does certainly. I mean, one of the big programs that we use is called direct primary care, which is the concept of having same day, next day access to your primary care physician. Also being able to do anything there from stitches to blood work to getting generic meds and having an average appointment time between 30 and 60 minutes, not the 7-minute average. And that when we put one of those programs in, it will reduce ER visits by 30 to 35%, that plan.
Sure.
We've seen that, and that's certainly a thing. But honestly, the bigger levers, like that
We're
is a
pushed right now from our insurance companies to go to the ER because of how they set up the compensation for the doctors.
well, in the average wait time to get an appointment with your primary care physician is usually about 18 days. So by the time that comes around, you're either cured or dead. And that's why people run into urgent care and ER, and that's certainly more expensive. So that's certainly part of the solution. The larger part is honestly even simpler. Um, an employer is a leveraged healthcare buyer, right? They're purchasing healthcare for hundreds of people now. And I think we all inherently understand, even if we don't know the ins and outs or why this works or how it works or where these decisions come.
Basic economics.
Yeah, but we all know, like, so if I sent five people into the same hospital with the same condition, same age, same gender, but I gave them five different insurance cards, they all come out with a different price. Same thing with the pharmacy. Same thing if we sent them to different pharmacies. So the question is why is there this wild variability and what are we doing inside our plan documents to structure this in a way that makes sense to where we're getting that data back, that transparency that we talked about, and we're measuring it? Because if you don't know where you fall into that spectrum, you're probably not on the good side of it, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the cheapest 5% in your state for your ER visits and for your urgent care and for your drugs, your carrier would probably let you know, right? And
Yeah.
we have to remember at the same time, those costs, those expenses, like we would call that as a, for the company, we would say their healthcare premium is rising, right? Their cost of insurance is rising. But for an insurance company, what they would say is my revenue is rising, my revenue is increasing. So to think that they're fighting these claim costs for hospitals for high cost drugs, really what they would be doing is fighting revenue. They'd be looking for ways to decrease revenue, which is again in alignment with kind of those broker misalignments, the perverse incentives. Those two things kind of couple together to amplify healthcare inflation.
Yeah. And I have to say, everybody should make a profit. Everybody should be
Yeah,
able to
absolutely.
earn a profit, no doubt. But, it looks like it's really inflationary. And here's the problem is you may pay $1 for the same thing I pay 10 for,
Mhm.
and that where's the equitability in that?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. And competitively speaking, how do you, again, it goes back to you can't compare it because you don't have another insurance company. And when you change, you
Yeah.
don't know what you're changing to or from.
Yeah. So that's what we do. That's essentially exactly what we do. So we're separating these parts of the healthcare plan to measure and manage them independently and do things that make sense for employees and for the plan sponsor and to get them those costs ahead of time. And we often catch that ahead of service and redirect the member and get them the same procedure at no cost, right?
Where does this problem begin? Like, where's the root of it?
It's a multi-headed snake or dragon, if you will. Um, part of the problem, I like one of the biggest drivers for sure is like hospital pricing, right? And the stuff we see come out of them, and it really makes no sense. So the traditional game is we will charge this absurd price, and then because you have this PPO network, we're going to give you a 50 to 60% discount. But then when you look at what the price is still after that discount, if we compare it to the largest insurer in this country, which is Medicare, we're still paying 4 or 5 times of what Medicare would pay for the same procedure after the 50 to 60% discount. So they just start made up price, huge discount, and then we're still multiples above where we should be to where all hospitals have agreed, yes, I can get these procedures done at that price and be profitable. They're not taking a loss on 51% of their patients because that's right in line with most hospitals. You can find it on their websites usually, like what percentage of their patients are Medicare, which ones are private insurance. So a lot of it is us negotiating these claims as they come in. So we'll get these invoices and kind of get them repriced and settled at a fair and equitable amount that's reasonable and customary. And that works for the plan sponsor. Obviously, they're paying less in claims, the employer, but also that employee has a cost share, right? Like you talked about those high deductibles or high co-insurance. So if we reduce a claim from $60,000 to $3,000 and that member had to pay 20%, that's a huge difference for that
Sure.
employee, right?
Sure.
That's the kind of stuff we do every single day.
That's amazing. So I know recently there's been legislation and even litigation about changing this marketplace. What's changed? Has anything come of it?
Yeah, things have finally starting to change. Like I said, I was calling this over 10 years ago, so I'm shocked it took so long.
Are you though?
Kind of, yeah, honestly, because the 401k lawsuits were so prevalent, and that was part of what I was doing as a financial advisor was helping clients avoid that, right? And seeing how much worse the fraud, waste, and abuse was on healthcare, I was like, this is going to come like any day now because like the 401k stuff is peanuts compared to what they're doing in healthcare.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of 2021, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 passed. And essentially what that did is it set a minimum standard of what employers need to do to be a fiduciary, which they already have been under ERISA, to their employees for their healthcare decisions. So employers have that fiduciary standard and obligation inherently, whether they want it or not, on their healthcare plans. So what this legislation did was it set up essentially a minimum set of standards of what employers need to do. And a lot of them still aren't meeting it, unfortunately. So that started January 2022. And those simple standards are broker compensation. So understand what your broker gets paid before you make a decision. And
Hmm.
also, you should know if they offered you A, B, and C, how much will they get paid on A, B, and C? Because they'll be different. And one of them will have a huge bonus, and their recommendation might be the one with the huge, right? So
Yeah.
understand where is the compensation? When do you get paid for what reasons? Like starting to question those conflicts of interest,
Yes.
right? The second thing was gag clause disclosure. So part of that lack of transparency we've been talking about is these insurance carriers say that claim information, where this, $2.5 million in insurance premium you paid me this year, where that goes, that's my proprietary information. You don't need to know. I can't tell you, blah, blah, blah. So the second thing was for employers to eliminate gag clauses in their contracts to understand that if they're funding $2.5 million, that's a combination of employer and employee funds. They need to know where it's going. When they say they have high claims, they need to see it. They need to understand where are those problems and what are the solutions to them. Because if you start, oftentimes when we get these reports from like insurance carriers, they'll say you spent $75,000 in the category heart.
Mm.
What does that mean? What
I
does that
don't know.
mean? Like that could be that doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me what problems I have, if it's going to persist to next year. Did I pay 10 times too much for a simple procedure? Doesn't cover it, right? So that's item two. And the third thing is in line with the pharmacy. So it is they call it the RxDC reporting. It is a drug cost benchmarking. So all the drugs in your plan, how much did you pay? And let's benchmark those. And what we're seeing is those middlemen, the pharmacy benefit managers, are telling the employers, hey, that RX benchmarking, don't worry, I did it for you. And it's like, can I see a copy? No, I can't send you a copy, right? The point of that is for the employer to benchmark the pharmacy benefit manager, not for the pharmacy benefit manager to benchmark themselves and never show you, because the pharmacy benefit manager has no obligations to your employees or to you.
Right.
Their contracts state that they are absolutely not a fiduciary to you or the employees. So that's the legislation has good intent. It's starting to change people. We've been doing a lot of education on it, explaining it. If people and if executives
Who's
maybe
enforcing it?
a lot of different three-letter organizations. So DOL, IRS, HHS, there's a lot of different organizations wrapped
Which
up.
are crossover and they're not talking to each other, and that's how people can skeet out from underneath it.
Yeah, and with the recent cut in all government agencies, that part is not going to have the teeth. Although, I mean, the penalties, because there are three different entities, the funny thing about it is you could literally get penalized by all of them at the same time, and then the penalties are astronomical. But the more important thing is that what this legislation did, it's not another one of those check boxes, pain in the butt reporting type things. What it really did was lay out a framework for employers to say, this should be the basis of my decision making. Who am I? The person that I hired to help me with this, how are they getting paid and when are they getting paid? When are they getting paid more for one decision over the next?
Wouldn't you normally ask those questions
No,
anyway?
they don't. No,
But doesn't that, like, to me that's common sense, is I want to know how you get paid because I want to know how you're telling me the information.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's why you have your company. Do you
Yeah, yeah.
support municipalities or just private companies?
I don't. I would love to one day. The problem is, a lot of the times they have formal processes for making bad decisions. Sometimes, it's a lot easier for us to work with a private company that understands, hey, this is a problem. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to put some resources behind it. We're going to do it like next month. Like we're
Yeah.
not going to talk about it for years. Like we're going to do
Yeah.
it. So they're a lot more motivated. They're a lot quicker to take action. I would love to bring the kind of savings that we do to, the public sector um, cases, but it's just
I think they need to, I
it's
think they
more
need,
political,
yeah,
right? Like
without a
there,
doubt. And I think they also need to take, instead of three agencies doing the enforcement, they should probably put it into one capsule, put all the resources into that one capsule, and
yeah,
have one agency take care of that particular thing, let the other two agencies do other things. When everybody's doing the same thing, you're going to cross over and cause conflict. That conflict stops it and mucks it up. So,
yeah,
having worked in the public sector, I know how that works. They don't talk to each other. One hand doesn't talk to the other hand, and they're both doing the same thing. And
yeah.
it's craziness. So it's duplicative. So you're spending all these funds doing the same thing and not getting anywhere. So interesting. Real quick, you have a documentary out that the link will be here
Mhm.
in with this episode. It's called "It's Not Personal, It's Just Healthcare." I really encourage everybody to watch it. It gives you a lot of information. Quick summary of it.
Yeah, so it's not about me. You're going to see me for like 40 seconds or so, just kind of opening up the film. But it is everybody else in the healthcare supply chain, from hospitals, nurses, physicians, former insurance executives, attorneys, administrators for state-run healthcare plans, pharmacists, explaining their aspect of the problem, the things they see, and also a framework for making it better. It'll educate you a lot. It's about 70 minutes. I promise if you watch 5 minutes, you'll be hooked to watch the whole thing, and you can access it on our website to view it before it hits streaming platforms.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll have that link with this as well as your contact information. Um, how do you begin working with you?
They can just message me on LinkedIn or email or anywhere. I'm
Okay.
available. I'm here. This is what I do. I love talking about it. I'll offer solutions to people, open up conversations, like whatever it takes. Like I'm on a mission.
If someone, I'm a take action success coach, right? If they were supposed to take one action, what do you think? What would your recommendation be to take action to really start getting your company healthcare products better?
I think the thing I always encourage is alignment. So both internally and externally. So internally in your company, bring in CEO, CFO, HR at least as a starting point, and then externally, the alignment is understanding that broker compensation. You can change the incentives. You can tell them how they're going to get paid. You can say, no, I don't like that. You can hire somebody new, right? So understanding those alignments both inside the company and outside the company. Inside, you'll start having people in their own role asking different good questions. And then that'll kind of in nature bring questions to the person helping you with that to align those two things together, get the result you guys need as an organization.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Donovan, for being on today and sharing your information. I hope to have you on again. This is really helpful. I've learned a whole lot about this as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. Again, I want to thank our guest today, Donovan Ryckis, and he's from Ethos Benefits. Reach out to him. Information is below. Look for our show next Saturday, as always, at 3 p.m. on JVC Broadcasting and iHeartRadio. We can also be found on all major platforms and would be grateful if you please like, follow, share, and subscribe and tell your bestie. Please take a moment to take action for yourself and take good care. Until next time, I am Coach Lorianne, America's #1 take action success coach and strategist. Let your dreams be bigger than your fears and let your life be filled with joy. Until next time, have a great day.